I had told RFM and Bill, I'm going to do a story about temple traffic. And then every day there was a new story about what was happening for the open house. So I kind of put them all together into a giant amalgam of Let's Talk Temple Square, because it is only a year away. So the preparations are absolutely headed, straight forward, speeding ahead. The headlines here are: Salt Lake Temple neighbors fear road closures will sever lifelines, while others see bright future for downtown. Legitimate concerns we're going to talk about. Another headline the next day was: Salt Lake Temple tours will break the tradition. Here is why the LDS Church is making this exception. And this has to do with being open on Sunday. Oh my goodness. And then the third article I'm going to be drawing from is: the Salt Lake Temple reopening crowds will be like a general conference session every day for 6 months. And here's what's ahead. Now that's incredible. Have either of you ever been on Temple Square during general conference in the day? Have you ever done it? Yeah.
No, I haven't. Is it busy?
Oh, no, it's insanely crowded, insanely. And all of the public transportation is crowded too. I ride the commuter train, and sometimes I've had to work on Saturdays. And it is incredibly crowded because free tickets, if you have a ticket to conference, you're also allowed to ride any public transportation for free to get there. So I can only imagine this may be a gridlock scenario for 6 months. So let's find out what's really going on. So a major renovation of the Salt Lake Temple and Temple Square was announced in April of 2019. I can't believe it was that long ago. It's been going on forever. And it officially began with the closure of the temple on December 29th of 2019. The open house will last from April conference of 2027 to October conference of October 2027. So it is a 6-month long just whirl of gaiety, right? To use a phrase from the past. So to handle the volume of visitors, major changes to traffic and street access are being planned around Temple Square. Several streets near the temple, including portions of North Temple, West Temple, and South Temple, could face closures or heavy restrictions to allow space for pedestrian movement and crowd management. The goal is to make the area safer and easier for large groups of people to walk between Temple Square, nearby buildings, and transit hubs. So you can see from this map here that they just want to really isolate the Temple Square area away from traffic. That makes sense for the visitors. That makes sense for everybody who's going. But the local businesses, people that are trying to get to work, because it is right downtown, that's going to be a nightmare. I feel like this is going to be a nightmare. I don't know what they're going to do. City planners and church leaders expect extraordinary visitor numbers. Did you guys know this? They expect 20,000 to 30,000 people per day. Do you guys think it's going to be that many? Bill's like, no.
Wouldn't it be funny if nobody showed up?
It would be interesting. I mean, 20,000 to 30,000 people a day. I can see in the summer, perhaps, that maybe people that are on vacation go, let's stop over at the temple. But I don't know how many people are going to make this their destination. Yes.
Rebecca, for the regular person visiting who can't go into the temple or inside the temple and see all the cool stuff that they destroyed.
Yeah.
How is going to this Temple Square during the 6-month period any different, really?
Yeah.
I mean, they'll have tours through the temple, I guess.
Yeah.
It's an open house, so maybe they'll have tours through the temple.
Oh, they'll have tours, but there's so much more. And this entire renovation is based on, of course, surveys and user data, like everything else in the church is. And the surveys from about 8 or 9 years ago of people that left Temple Square and filled out a user experience survey. What they learned from these surveys was nobody knew what the hell was happening with Mormons or the temple. When you went on Temple Square in the past, you looked at a building, you went to a visitor center where there were a few displays, but nobody knew what Mormonism was about. They certainly didn't think that Jesus Christ was part of it. That was one of the questions. And they had no idea what was happening. So everything they have done, and I'm going to go into a few of the things, is to help, like you said, the common person who walks on Temple Square, even in the future when they cannot go into the temple, they will leave Temple Square. This is the goal, understanding what a temple's for, what Mormonism is about, and that we are indeed Christian and worship Jesus Christ. So this will be interesting. So it says that, okay, here we go. Conference level crowds every day. So, okay, we talked about that. It says millions of visitors, right, to the area. Major economic boost is what they're talking about. Hotels and restaurants and businesses. This could be true if they have that many guests for sure. But of course, it also raises concerns for the residents and businesses about congestion, closures, and just day-to-day access, because they are really talking about shutting everything down. So it'll be kind of like the Olympics. I was here for the Olympics, and it was like that. And I think this is also, they'll use the same kind of plans when the Olympics do come almost 8 years later. So, okay, so authority services, including light rail, buses, ticket holders for the open houses, and church employees could possibly get free public transit, like I talked about, that happens. Also, park and ride lots. So they're really trying to make this accessible, but I still think if they really do have that many people, it's going to be a nightmare. So they're also saying just avoid downtown, avoid driving in downtown if possible. So here we will talk about your question, RFM. So city officials say they're trying to balance those concerns while preparing for what could be one of the biggest tourism events Salt Lake City has ever hosted in decades, since the Olympics, I think. And again, I had to make my fun little AI, Jesus Land. There it is. So what do I mean by Jesus Land? So one of the interesting parts here is that it just came out today. They're going to be open on Sunday. Temple open houses are not open on Sunday. Typically, I don't think I've ever heard of one, but to accommodate all these people that are coming from out of state, out of the country, it is going to be open on Sunday to visitors. And that means that volunteers and perhaps even paid people, because we know there are those paid Disney-like user experience guide, right? Guest experience people that are going to be paid replacing missionaries. They may be working on Sunday. And I also feel like if the crowds are there and the temple's open, the businesses that may have been closed in the past around Temple Square because there's nobody there, at least nobody that's going to shop on Sunday, I think they're going to start opening too. So this could really usher in a new era for downtown Salt Lake where businesses and amenities are open. I don't know. I was once on Temple Square when there was an Episcopalian conference. They were there at a big hotel downtown, and they were walking around Temple Square and the area going, well, where can we eat? Why is everything closed? This is so weird. Like they were visibly confused at how shut down the entire area was. And they don't want to have that happen when all these thousands and thousands of guests show up. So to your question, RFM, it's not just the temple that's been renovated. Do you guys realize that? Do you realize it's a whole thing with new buildings and new everything? Have you been keeping up on it?
Tell us about it, Rebecca.
I'm going to tell you about it because I think it's really important. So again, back to that user survey, right? Once the temple is no longer open, what do you have on Temple Square? Well, now you have a whole bunch of stuff, right? So new buildings and major structural additions on the LDS Temple Square include 2 new northeast entrance pavilions. You can kind of look at this down here. Do you notice those buildings that look like they have a cross on the top? A lot of people are taking note of that. Isn't that interesting? It's a nave-like architecture style there, but they really have emphasized the crosses. So they have pavilions and they have these other outbuildings where people can go. So there's an expanded north ceiling wing with 12 new ceiling rooms and an underground visitor pavilion. This is where it gets exciting. So first of all, you have the temple entrance buildings, 2 new stone-clad entrance buildings with detailed design entrances. You've got the north wing ceiling that we explained, the underground visitor center. A new multi-level guest building is being built underneath the south visitor center and a refurbished assembly room. So what is in all these buildings, right? How does this help us understand what goes on in the temple? So I kind of put some pictures up here. One of these buildings, let me see, there it is. One of these buildings is the upper level of the guest building, that's underground, will house a statue of Jesus Christ. Okay, that takes care of the question. Yes, we worship Jesus, and an updated cutaway scale model of the temple. So they just slice the temple. It's a model, and you can look in and you can see all the rooms. You can see what everything is. And in addition to that, there's also on the lower level a temple. Did you know they built a temple? It's a temple. They have ceiling rooms. They have endowment rooms. They have a baptistry, because what they're going to have is a perpetual open house. Because for some reason, the LDS Church believes that you can understand what Mormonism is by walking through a building and have somebody going like this, right? They think that just by looking at the rooms in which things happen, you can understand what it is. And so it's going to be a perpetual open house. And I even heard, I cannot find this reference back, but I read it several years ago, that it can be dedicated if needed to be used as an actual temple space that's dedicated and undedicated for future guests. So that's the idea, that people will be able to come to an open house and walk through a temple and sort of see what's going on. What do you guys think of that, RFM?
I agree with you. I don't see how they think that showing you the rooms of a temple gives you any
Yeah,
clue as to what actually
I
takes
know.
place there. I think in their minds, this is their version of transparency.
Yep.
I'll only add here, if I go back to slide 57, they're making an exception to break the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just looking around I asked ChatGPT there. If it looked like I was typing, it's because I was asking ChatGPT to find leader quotes, and there are plenty of them. Dallin Oaks, Russell Nelson, James E. Faust, where they're teaching the members not to find justifications to break the Sabbath. I find it's a strange thing that this church is going to justify breaking the Sabbath day. Well, because so many people are going to visit. And I've been to Salt Lake City. I've been to Temple Square. I don't think 20 to 30,000 people are showing up. What I would want to know is, what was the amount of visitors visiting Temple Square 5 years ago, let's say, and how many above and beyond that are they expecting to show up this year? And they're saying 20 to 30,000. And I'm thinking it might be lucky if it's, and they're saying, was it 20 to 30,000
a day?
A day. So if they were open 24 hours a day, that would be like 1,000 people, 1,000 new people on Temple Square every hour.
Above and beyond what it's been in the past, maybe it will be another 300 to 1,000 people tops a day.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I don't see how they can get those numbers. And somebody in the chat asked a really good question about the initiatory room. And I've been talking about this today because Pastor Jeff McCullough went on the tour of the Linden Temple, which I'm actually going on. I won't say what day, but I am going soon.
Are you one of those podcaster influencers who gets a special invite?
Yes, I'm not, of course, but Charlie Bird and Pastor Jeff, they are. And he made a post saying, I was really confused because there was no information about the initiatory room. And I had made this observation at the Syracuse Temple that every other room has an easel with a sign on it that says baptismal font. And it has a little, information about it, instruction room. There it is, information. But when you walk past the initiatory room, because there's a sign on the door, there's nothing there and there's no person there, ushering you or there to ask questions. So it's almost like they're like, oh, I'll talk about that. So Pastor Jeff made this observation and he asked his tour guide, who happened to be Elder Razband, of course.
Which one?
Yeah, the elder, Razband, the elder, the apostle. Good question, though. Now we have to ask that, don't we? And Elder Razband apparently took Pastor Jeff on a personal tour of the initiatory room with the different booths, which they have now there. And so it kind of sparked a discussion. I made a little short about it saying, does anybody else remember going through a temple open house where they even explained what that was? And if they really are just pay no attention behind this curtain as they did when I was in the Syracuse temple, why? People were saying this is a very important part of the temple. You receive your temple garment there. So why is this kind of hush hush? Is it that they recognize that, especially in the past, it was extremely problematic? And I will tell you that when I went through the list of the things that are going to be in the mock open house, it did not say initiatory room. It just said font, instruction room, and endowment room and sealing room. So it's possible that they're actually even leaving that out of this perpetual open house.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I am surprised too about the church because I find their lack of Sabbath observance disturbing. Honestly, the church is not slipping into apostasy. It is stampeding into apostasy. I have never seen anything like it in my life. And I'm judging it by what the church taught apostasy was back when I joined the church, which was really just about 40 years ago. Not even quite. No, 50 years ago, not even quite. So one lifetime, the church has changed so much that it's almost becoming indistinguishable from Christianity for some reason.
Yeah. I would say about the last 15 years is when all this has happened. Like it really has. It's been that recent. So, but I think maybe this opening on Sunday is like the tank top garment. I always go back to that, where you give a little, right?
Okay.
You can come to the temple on Sunday here for this open house. You can be in downtown Salt Lake. But like I said, stores are open, Starbucks is open, things are going on. And it's not going to feel like Sunday. And maybe people go to the open house and then they go next door and they go to lunch, or it just, again, is sort of a Pandora's box where they gave a little and it may change everything. So we'll have to watch this when it happens. So, all right. If we have no more comments on that, we will move on to Bill. Like I said, there were several. Oh, no, you know what? This is my last slide. Sorry, one more slide. Okay. I will tell you the real reason that I'm super excited about the open house. Now, this is an article from way back in 2022, right? Where people, especially in the art world and also LDS world, started to understand what they were doing to the inside of the Salt Lake Temple. And the title of the article was Lost in Transformation, Preservationists Lament the Gutting of the Salt Lake Temple. And they started to realize that, this isn't just a renovation. They're ripping the insides out. They're ripping out the murals. Somebody on Temple Square, one of those senior missionaries I love to talk to, even told me they were running every piece of woodwork through a wood chipper so that nobody would take an icon home, an artifact. Here's a piece of the banister. Here's this. Like destroyed is what I'm understanding.
So the church does know how to use a wood chipper when it wants to.
For certain things, yes, probably not the things they should. So the article says, in the wake of Nelson's decision, the whole architecture that supported the narrative had to be reconfigured, triggering a domino effect. Steps leading upward to reflect eternal progression, gone. Wall murals visually depicting the stages of human development, gone. Historic woodwork, doorknobs. I think I cut off the rest of what I was going to say. Everything, chandeliers, the majority of it all gone. So I want people to go to this open house, and I want there to be a huge public outcry when they actually see what they did. And I know faithful members will go, yeah, it's great. But in their heart, they might go, wow, this is where I took my endowments out 40 years ago. This was a beautiful pioneer work of art, and it's gone. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, just so that they can see what was done. They were able to save Manti. Do you guys remember this? When people saw what they were doing to Salt Lake and Manti was next, the art world protests, and they stopped it, and so they were able to save it. But the Salt Lake Temple, no. So I'm going to be there. I'm very curious.